You've ever met those people that say they're processing and they be processing for days? Come on, fam. It don't take you that long to process. Like, come on, fam. It really don't. What you're fighting is your ego.
So over 3 decades, I have been married. One of the worst decisions that I ever made was not being vulnerable.
Unhealed wounds, man, don't do anything but continue to create toxic patterns that you'll see moving forward. So if we really want to be the men of peace, or peace that we want to invite, create in the environments that we're around, it takes us not sacrificing our peace to get there, but perhaps sacrificing our selfishness to get there. Is it true that men must sacrifice their peace, or is there something else to it? Let's check it out.
I hear women say all the time, and I think there's a lack of self-awareness from women, is they will say things like, I want my man to be vulnerable. And they think what they want is for their man to unload all the shit that he's going through. But here's the reality. A guy goes through a lot to take care of his family, to protect those he loves, and to be a man. If he unloads that on his woman, he's going to destroy her peace. He's going to destroy the peace of the home. A man has to sacrifice his peace so that he can provide peace for his family. A peace that he'll never know. And that's just the role of being a man that goes out his front door every day to take care of his family. If you start treating your wife or your woman like she's your mother, you want her to wipe your nose, you want her to pick you up and tell you it's going to be all right, she's going to start acting like your mother, and it's going to destroy your relationship. As men, we have to be stoic. We have to hold those cards close to our chest, but the reality is it's really unhealthy for us as men to do that. That's why it's so important that you have a tribe around you, that you have like-minded brothers with you that are going to be in the boat pulling the oars with you, that are going to be guys you can trade war stories with, guys that can tell you when you're doing it, telling you, hey man, we got your back, we're there for you. That's where you take your and you unload it, is with your tribe. You don't take it home. You don't go destroy the peace and the harmony of the home that you are fighting to protect by bringing all the that you're dealing with and unloading it there. You take it to your home, and you're sitting around the proverbial fire, you share your shit with each other, you level up, and you get back out there and you do it again the next day. That's the journey of being a man.
In one aspect, he is right, in the sense that you don't want to come home and just unload everything on the home, because it seems like it could bring a level of tension that is unwanted and could cause some chaos in the midst of it. And so having community is important. On the flip side of that, though, to then suggest that it's a peace that man can't know and he has to sacrifice his peace, I don't think I fully agree with that. I don't think I fully agree with the aspect of men having to sacrifice their peace in a home that not only his peace ought to be cared for, but the peace of others around him ought to be cared for, and everybody should contribute to one another's peace in the home. And so to be able to say, well, when I come home, I have to sacrifice my peace in order for you to have it, seems very heroic in a very unnecessary manner. And I don't necessarily think, and again, now let me say this from a perspective of a single guy who is not married, okay? Very limited in this, but also from just more importantly than anything, a biblical perspective that I intend to carry from these perspectives and these things. I just don't see anywhere from that place, from the text, from what Jesus pours into us, invests into us through his word, that in order to create peace, you must sacrifice yours. When in fact, he gives us an opportunity to come to him for rest, and everybody is available for a measure of peace that passes all understanding. And so I think that there's something to be perhaps stamped on in that perspective, while also holding the tension of not coming home and unloading everything and turning it into a war zone from that manner. What are your thoughts from a married perspective? I definitely think that would be helpful.
Okay, before I give you the marriage perspective, let me just say again to those of you who are viewing our content, we're Christians. So this is the very first video that you see from us. Sean was making reference to God's peace that we have. So now let me jump into from the marriage perspective. So over 3 decades, I have been married. 3 decades. I have been married.
Applause.
Okay. One of the worst decisions that I ever made was not being vulnerable. One of the worst decisions I ever made was not coming home and telling my wife about my disturbances. One of the worst decisions that I ever made was not coming to my one flesh who could pray for me, cover me, lift me, encourage me, speak to me. One of the worst decisions I ever made was not doing that. My home is not a place for me to hide. My home is a place for me to come forward in. My home is a place for my authentic self to shine the most. My home is a place for my wife to be able to see my ups, my downs, my struggles, and to recognize that I'm not good at standing. God is good at holding me up. if my struggle diminishes my wife's love for me or diminishes the peace in my house, then perhaps I'm not talking about a struggle that is just a life scenario. Perhaps I'm talking about a different type of struggle here, Sean. Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I have an anger issue and I'm coming and disturbing my peace. Maybe I'm a womanizer and I'm coming and I'm disturbing the peace in my house. Maybe I don't treat my kids well. I talk to them in such a way that my wife cannot honor the tone in my voice, the language that I use, the way that I approach them, my lack of grace, my lack of mercy for them, my lack of love for them, my impatience for them. Perhaps I'm unavailable emotionally to my wife and or to my children. And now everybody is struggling with my inability to be available at the level that they would like for me to be available at. This might be a struggle for a certain man, but in general, I disagree wholeheartedly with him. I'm not supposed to leave my home and take my stuff out of my home and show up as an imposter to my wife and my children and act like nothing ever bothers me. He made mention of we're supposed to find that group of men where we're supposed to be stoic. No, those men are supplemental to the woman that you are married to, who again, and the two, again, remember, we're Christians, so and the two shall become one. And so it's not for me to, I'm not laying anything on her. I'm in essence speaking to myself when I'm speaking to my wife. And she might be the healed part of me, the part of me that's working well, who then can help me rejoin in the appropriate way how I'm supposed to rejoin this. Not to tell her is to leave her in the dark about a condition that might be going on in my life that I one day show up with as an alcohol issue, as a porn issue, as a substance abuse issue, right? As a cheating issue, all because I needed to be stoic and talk to my homeboys who perhaps may not even be married and couldn't even relate to my contact.
That's massive. That's that's massive, yo. That's a lot. I think that's beautiful. First and foremost, again, I would say as a single guy looking at this, I almost think that these kinds of messages is what throws fuel into the fire for guys to not learn how to communicate what they're going.
100%.
Like 1000%.
100%.
There's a lot of influences, man. You know, oh, you can't trust women. I'll never trust a woman again. I'll never do this again. And it all
Why are you
comes
with
from
her? Why are you with her?
why are you with her? Like it comes from unhealed wounds, man. Like this is why I'm so big on advocating for single men to heal from these kinds of experiences that they have endured. Because you thinking that you have to be stoic and not show any emotion or expression of things that are disturbing you, that ultimately when you bring it home easily affects the whole house because they feel it when you walk through the door. Like I think that is not setting you or your family up in the best places. And I think there's room to understand, like, okay, where is this rooted from? Where does this come from? What's the story behind you feeling you cannot be safe here in an environment you helped create? How does this play a role in that? And then being willing to take those steps, even in the midst of perhaps assumed fear, stories that we're writing in our minds, all kinds of things that we've just programmed ourselves to believe to be true that don't really apply to the situation and environment that we're here in. Unhealed wounds, man, don't do anything but continue to create toxic patterns that you'll see moving forward. So if we really want to be the men of peace or peace that we want to invite, create in the environments that we're around, it takes us not sacrificing our peace to get there, but perhaps sacrificing our selfishness to get there, our ego to get there. Our sacrifices of, man, you know what? Even though this is what I'm assuming can happen, this isn't coming from the person that I think it's going to happen through. It's coming from the people that I'm reflecting on that have hurt me prior to. But when I compare them, there's nothing about them that's reminiscing to the moment in person that's in front of me now. So even though I may be a little bit timid, scared, and afraid to open up and be vulnerable here, I can trust this person because I've got a track record of who this person is, to know that they won't take it and throw it back at me or use it as a weapon later on when we have a disagreement. Like taking that and actually processing that. We as men have to become better at processing those emotions and things that are bothering us without feeling like in order to get there, I have to suppress it and be in a corner in an environment I've created. And the way to get there, I mean, we can go all down the list of applicabilities. You know, obviously coaching, counseling, and therapy is a beautiful thing, but there's also things like journaling. There's also things like asking why we feel the way we do, and not needing to take so long to process our emotions. You've ever met those people that say they're processing and they be processing for days? Come on, fam. It don't take you that long to process. Like, come on, fam. It really don't. What you're fighting is your ego.
Absolutely.
You're not fighting. You're not still trying to understand and wrap your mind around what happened. You know what happened. It's actually just fighting your ego to step in and die to yourself and say, I was wrong, or here's what's bothering me, or you know what, this is what I need to communicate with you, and begin to create that safe space where those conversations can happen. But this idea that I have to sacrifice my peace to keep the peace in the home, what is that? I don't see that.
There is a sacrifice, Sean, but I don't think it's peace.
Right. Yeah.
There's a sacrifice that we make. So to those who see it differently than I do, or maybe than you do, perhaps, let me throw them a bone real quick. I get where the man is coming from. When I was pastoring, I would keep certain things from my wife that I didn't think were pertinent to her that I needed to handle. But if they were impacting me, if they were impacting my emotional, my spiritual, or physical well-being, you doggone Skippy, I was going to tell my wife. But there were some things that would take place with people I didn't need to tell my wife. Now, if he's speaking in that context, great. But truthfully, Christians aren't Stoics. We can learn some things from the Stoics. There's some principles from those who were Stoics, some great writers, some great thoughts, but Christians aren't Stoics. Christians move in vulnerability. One of our superpowers is vulnerability. Our superpower is being vulnerable enough to say, I can't, and I need God to use the other people that are a part of the body in my life, and to my wife included in that, to assist me, man, to be able to move forward in life. And so, yes, there are some things that you should hold to not put on somebody who maybe can't handle it. And I think there's some wisdom too in knowing too. So for example, I know my wife. I know what my wife can handle, what my wife can't handle. Another part of, you were talking about self-awareness in the video previously, that we talked about. And the reality of it is that's part of being self-aware. Also, just recognizing, who are you married to? What is their capacity for certain levels of information? And how do you then navigate that? There's certain things that I had to figure out a way to share them with my wife. I need to figure that out. Now, that's a wisdom move, not a sacrifice move. That's wisdom. That's wisdom. Dwell with your wife according to knowledge, the Bible says, right? Okay. So that's how I had to dwell with her, is according to knowledge. And likewise with me, the way certain things are presented are important, because you can present it, yes, and create chaos in your house by just simply by the way you present it. So I think it's more about wisdom, John, than it is sacrifice. And certainly not acting like, oh, well, I can't unload all this on my wife. Well, the question becomes is, what are you unloading? That's the question. If it's you, again, unloading something that you're causing for yourself that is out of order in your life, then yeah, 100%, go get some help. 1000%, you go get some help. If you're a serial cheater, if you're thinking about cheating, if you're drinking behind the scenes, or you're going on business trips and you're out there doing stuff that you know that you shouldn't do, yeah, 100%. You need to, first of all, you need to say it, you own up to it, and then you say, I'm actually getting the support and the help that I need outside of here. But I still think that your wife needs to know exactly what it is that you might be dealing with. But again, if you're heaping stupid stuff on yourself, then that's an issue with you, and not a matter of keeping peace from his house. Get a whole bunch of guys around you. First of all, let me tell you, most guys aren't good at having conversations. You and I are doing something that I would venture to say that well up into the high 70% of men don't do. They do not sit down and have conversations about these kind of things. We just kind of go, shoot, man, shoot, this is just where I'm at. And just like you said, or we'll just dismiss somebody. Man, you can't trust no woman, man. You just got to holler at your boys, man. Let your boys hold you down. But listen, all that sounds really good. Whatever, my question to you is, who did you choose? That's honestly would be my question. Who did you choose? Because I'm not choosing somebody I can't talk to. That's just the truth. I need to be able to tell you if I'm struggling with something. I need to be able to tell you that I'm going through something. I need your prayers. I need your wisdom. I need your love. I need your patience. I need your grace. I need all of that. What I don't need to do is show up here and model for my kids, especially my sons. I don't ever have problems. I'm stoic. So when he comes, he's looking at you going, I got a problem. But he can't approach you because you look like you never have a problem. This in and of itself, Sean, is problematic.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm thinking of James 5:16 again from a biblical perspective. He says, confess your faults one to another as brothers and sisters, that in so you may be healed. Right. And so a lot of men aren't getting the healing they need because you aren't opening your mouth, confessing to people that have room and capacity to contain what it is that you are sharing, to work through honestly, so that the healed version of what you need to say and what you need to do can be infiltrated into the home, instead of you giving out more dysfunction because you aren't doing what you should be doing from a healed place, or just getting the help you need. It's kind of a thought that comes to my mind. I think that this also goes back again to people who maybe like me, man, you're in this wild dating space, right? Like you just said, who did you marry? Who did you choose? This ought to give you encouragement when you hear things like this,
Right.
to sit back and go, okay, when I'm in this dating space, or when I'm trying to really find the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, I should be doing a whole lot more than just taking her to all of these expensive places, making memories.
Right.
Like I should be actually having legitimate conversation of substance with this person. And as we're getting to know one another, I want to also lead in vulnerability by exposing anything one nugget at a time. I'm not saying tell your whole life story when you first meet,
Right,
but
right,
there
right.
is, there's context to vulnerability. There's context to stuff where is it raw, is it real, and is it relevant? Right? Like if it's relevant to the conversation, there's areas and spots to do that. But as you're getting to know somebody, give them a little bit, one nugget at a time, and see what they do with it. Like these are seasons and times. Not dating shouldn't just be a space where you're rushing to the altar and you're rushing to long-term commit with people. You actually need to take a process and just get to learn this individual, and also get to learn what they do in certain seasons, when they're with and when they're without, when they're upset and angry, and when they're calm and at peace. When you tell them something that is of extreme vulnerability to you, and it was just one of perhaps many things that you've experienced and gone through, you give it to them in a conversation when it's relevant, and you just observe and see what they do with it. How do they receive it? How do they begin responding to you since you've exposed that? Is it now all of a sudden the communication is dipped, there's great distance and separation? You know what you got there, right? Instead of just, oh man, she bad, she thick, but I mean, she can hold a little conversation, but I'll carry the rest. You know what I'm saying? It ain't nothing but a thing. And then you move to a space, it's very shallow, man. Then you move to a space where now marriage all of a sudden, I feel as if, and I've experienced this with friends of mine who have now gotten married up to this point. And so visiting their home and sitting with them, and it almost, I know I feel it. I don't know if they feel it. I would assume they would. It's like a moment where everything just kind of becomes reality. Like all the butterfly and honeymoon and all this other kind of stuff, it just becomes real. This is somebody I see every day, breath hot, stinking in the morning and all. Like this, like there's no more like honeymoon phase. Oh, this is so cute. And you hang up. No, you hang up. Like this is real. And because it hits that moment, that's when humanity starts to spill out. And so I want to be sure that I do my due diligence, not just making sure that I'm connecting to the right person in that dating space and who I'm connecting to and being intentional in those, but also making sure that I am a person that has the capacity to contain what it is this person brings to me, being honest about where I am and what I'm willing to align myself with to move forward, instead of just being here, going to trips, taking trips and spending money and having a good time, making memories and having fun conversations, but there's no room for substance and vulnerable conversations to be had to see who we really are. And now that I see a little bit of your baggage, you see a little bit of mine. Now that's when we actually are now at the most being able to choose one another. That's when the choice to choose somebody gets real, and you'll see who's with you. when you're vulnerable and you're able to expose who you are, and doing so in love and creating a safe space for that person to do the same. Because if I'm coming to you and I'm just expressing to you a version of me that isn't authentic, I'm robbing you and myself from experiencing God.
100%.
Because God
And
is in the
experiencing
midst.
you and experiencing who this person really is, right?
Man.
Because this is why people, Sean, get married. They're married the same length of time that I am, and then their family is all in shock and awe when they end up getting a divorce after being married 25, 35 years.
Kids are out.
And they look at and they go, well, what's happening? And the person like, I don't know who this person is. That's the reason why they're divorcing them, because they're like, I don't know who this person is. It's because you never got to know them. What you did was you built everything around raising kids and building a home and a house and activities, but you never invested into that person, into that relationship. Let me circle back to where I was talking about the man not being able to show his son, any type of emotions or vulnerability. Same for his daughter. His daughter is going to look at a man who ultimately then is going to say, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Why are you showing me this? And she's going to be like, you're just supposed to be like Superman. This dude is breaking down inside. This dude is about to crumble. This dude might be getting ready to do harm to her, all because he needed to have a place to share his heart and to be seen as a human. And now this woman, like a lot of the women now that are coming up, what? Man, I need a man. So he's not a man because he's vulnerable. These are the toxic messages that are now creeping into the church, instead of, no, this is my husband and I'm supposed to be there as a wife and be able to uplift my family. Again, I appeal to the Proverbs 31 woman. The Bible says that she was so cold-blooded that she was known. Her husband was known for her work. Listen, man. I mean, listen, there's so much stuff I couldn't have done, Sean, without my wife. There's so much stuff I couldn't have done without my wife. I am not about to be running around here trying to be stoic, talking to people who probably aren't married anyway, who are going to give me wrong information. Suck it up, man. Suck it up. Be a man. That right there is the reason why, as you alluded to in a previous video, we have all of these young men right now who are not thriving and are subject now to alcoholism, porn, and increasing rates of suicide, all because we're telling them to be stoic instead of be honest. I'm not with it.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not with it. And I think perhaps the biggest takeaway from this video, man, is recognizing, one, again, going back to the self-awareness part. Where are you? Who are you? And what you're doing? But then two, being mindful of the people that you connect with, because you ought to always be willing to take up space in relationships that you carry, to where a space should be presented to you as you are presenting it to them, to have safety, to contain what it is you're dealing with, especially the home you create and the person you marry. And this idea of being stoic is not a reflection of the kingdom. It's a reflection of fear. It's a reflection of selfishness. It's a reflection of entitlement to some degree. Like if you really want to experience genuine relationship and love in your life, which is not a soft or beta thing, by the way.
Right.
If you really want to experience that in your life, it takes you putting yourself in a position to be hurt, but the other person is doing the same.
Absolutely.
And when you trust that, and you are actually, watch this, not just thinking, okay, what do I get out of this, but what am I investing into this person? What's in me that is actually worth this person receiving based on this encounter that I have in front of them? What can I invest into them? What can I instill into them? Even if it's just for this moment, and it may not go further than where it's at, but these are the moments that actually mean something. Like, really, not you getting the girl, not you getting the ring, not you getting the desired outcome. We have to be willing to detach from that to the point where we are okay if that doesn't happen, and still see value in today. Still see value in the moment. I'll tell y'all, brother, I have been through a pursuit. Man, I've always expressed my gratitude for it. It didn't go how I wanted to, but I've always expressed my gratitude for it, because it was the moments that we shared in that pursuit that I was able to instill and invest something. I was able to grow, be stretched and transformed inwardly from the conversations and experiences that I had in that space, dealing with rejection, dealing with heart, all that kind of stuff, all this stuff that was brought up out of me as a result of being connected to this. And man, it was dope. Right. Nothing but good things to say, but because I valued the journey and I got to the place. I won't speak as if I always had it. There was a moment in the beginning, bro, I was trying to get to that outcome so fast. When I got to the place of valuing the journey and valuing the moment and knowing and believing that it didn't have to get to where I wanted it to be for value to be present, that's when things changed. That's when I was able to continue loving and being kind, being the person that I'm called to be, to reflect the heart of Christ, even if I didn't get what I wanted. So when I didn't get what I wanted, I didn't switch up and she didn't all of a sudden become a hoe.
Right.
She didn't all of a sudden become somebody that I never wanted in the first place.
Right.
It was something that I was able to just accept and give her the room and space to acknowledge where she was and receive that and honor that in love. And we walked away from that with no harm, no foul, all love, because of what was presented there in vulnerability, in embracing the journey, and more importantly, having Christ's love at the center of that and honoring him before anything else. That is where the difference is, man. I just think that stuff is necessary. So hearing messages like this is just, it's challenging, because on one hand, we get what you're saying, but in a way that it's presented, especially when we start talking about peace, we got to be able to identify where this peace comes from and who is this peace that you're speaking of.
Right.
Because if we aren't coming from a place that is grounded, that is in a foundational, unmovable, unshakable peace, we're not talking about that, but we're talking about a peace that you have to earn, that you have to suppress, that you have we're in a whole different
that
lane.
He said the rest of his family could experience, but that he never could.
What?
But this doesn't make sense from a biblical perspective,
Right.
because that's not God's plan for us.
Right.
So this
Absolutely.
is where believers need to not listen to things like that and then take that on and adopt it as some type of theological truth or fact or scriptural or principle thing that we should take on. No, God says, my peace I give to you. So no, this is not a place where I sacrifice for them to have peace, but I have none. See, here's the problem. You're making the assumption that you're giving them peace that you've never experienced. So if you don't even know the peace, what the peace is, and how do you know you're giving them peace? I can't give you something I don't possess. Yeah. So anyway.
And it's blinding. Well, and my last thought is that it's where you have mistaken peace for dysfunction, because it's just what you're used to.
100%.
It's what you're used to, and you're comfortable there. So you're just giving it and you're explaining it as peace, but it's destroying the home.
It's what you're used to.
It's what you're used to. Yeah. And so there's just a need to get into a place where that is understood and unlocked for you to be able to grow from that and begin giving something that's healthier, that starts with you addressing you.
Agreed.
1000%. So, man, we appreciate you guys so much for this. Hope you guys got a lot out of it. If you did, leave a comment below, like, share, subscribe this video, or subscribe to this channel, share this video. It's going to be so much more content coming your way as we continue to bring Christ to culture, addressing so many topics from social media and bringing it to a centric place where balance and truth is involved. We appreciate you guys so much. And until our next conversation, be easy and be breezy. Peace.
Peace.